Welcome to Empathy Stories, the channel where we explore the raw emotions, life-changing decisions, and the incredible resilience of the human spirit. Today, we delve into the gripping tale of betrayal, courage, and redemption, where friendships are tested, truths are uncovered, and justice is sought in the face of deep personal pain. It was a cold, gray afternoon when Madison parked her car across the street from St. John's Church. Rain drizzled lightly against her windshield, blurring the view of the building's towering spire. The text message she had received moments earlier played on repeat in her mind. St. John's Church. 2 p.m. You need to see this. The sender was unknown, and yet Madison couldn't dismiss the tug in her gut. The sharp intuition whispering that this moment might unravel everything she thought she knew. Her husband, Liam, was supposed to be in Chicago for a business conference. The calendar in their kitchen confirmed it, as did his secretary and even the flight itinerary he'd shown her before leaving. And yet, something about the text's insistence gnawed at her, forcing her to abandon all logic and drive 2 hours from their home in Providence to this church in Boston. Her fingers trembled as she tightened her grip on the steering wheel, trying to steady her breathing. A wave of guests streamed into the church, umbrellas snapping shut as they stepped through the heavy wooden doors. Madison's heart sank as she spotted familiar faces in the crowd, acquaintances she hadn't seen in years, all dressed in formal attire. Her chest tightened, and her pulse quickened. Against her better judgment, she reached for her sunglasses, slipping them on as though they could shield her from whatever truth lay ahead. Inside, the air was thick with the scent of incense and damp stone. Memories flooded back to her of her own wedding day 7 years ago. In this very church, she remembered the floral arrangements, the organ playing softly, and the way Liam had gripped her hands nervously at the altar. But today, the organ sounded heavier, mournful even, as if it too carried a weight. Standing at the back of the church, hidden behind a pillar, Madison's breath caught in her throat. There he was, Liam, standing tall at the altar. He looked polished and confident, wearing a tuxedo she didn't recognize. His hands were clasped in front of him, and his jaw twitched with the same nervous tick she had memorized over the years. This wasn't a business trip. This wasn't Chicago. This was betrayal. And then, as if to twist a knife, the bride appeared. Madison's knees nearly buckled as Jessica, her best friend since childhood, began her procession down the aisle. Jessica's long, dark hair flowed elegantly over her shoulders, and her olive complexion glowed under the soft light filtering through stained glass windows. The betrayal wasn't just Liam's, it was Jessica's too. They were supposed to be a trio, an unbreakable team forged through years of shared laughter, tears, and promises to never lie to one another. Yet here they were, standing before God and everyone else, vowing their eternal love. Madison didn't stay for the vows. She didn't need to hear them to feel the sting. By the time she stumbled back into her car, her breath came in ragged gasps, and her vision blurred with tears. She gripped the steering wheel tightly, as if anchoring herself to reality. The raindrops on the windshield mirrored the ones rolling down her cheeks. When she finally drove home, her mind raced. The kitchen welcomed her with its cold, sterile perfection, a space Liam had insisted they remodel the previous year. It was a showcase of modernity, gleaming surfaces, and functionality. Yet now it felt like a prison. The walls closed in as she poured herself a glass of Liam's favorite scotch, the burn of the liquid grounding her in the moment. Her phone buzzed on the counter, and she flinched at the sound. It was a text from Liam. Conference running late. Don't wait up. The audacity of it nearly made her laugh. She set the glass down with a sharp clink and picked up her phone again. A second text appeared, this time from the unknown number. Now you know. What will you do about it? The question lingered like a specter in the room. What would she do? Would she confront Liam directly? Expose Jessica's betrayal? Burn their entire world to the ground? As she stared at the illuminated screen, a bitter smile crept onto her face. If Liam and Jessica wanted to play games, Madison decided she would join them, but on her terms. Her laptop sprang to life as her fingers danced across the keyboard. searching for records, connections, and any breadcrumbs that could confirm the depth of Liam's duplicity. Bank accounts, property deeds, and emails slowly came together like pieces of a grotesque puzzle. Every discovery painted a clearer picture of how Liam had manipulated not only her, but Jessica as well. The anger in Madison's chest smoldered into a determined resolve. This wasn't just about betrayal anymore. It was about the web of lies Liam had spun for years. And if he thought he could keep her in the dark, playing the loyal, oblivious wife, he was gravely mistaken. As the sun set, casting long shadows across the pristine kitchen, Madison leaned back in her chair and stared at the evidence she had gathered. Betrayal, it turned out, wasn't a single act. It was a carefully orchestrated symphony of deception, built on half-truths and calculated omissions. And while Liam might have been the conductor, Madison was determined to rewrite the final movement. The morning after discovering Liam's betrayal, Madison sat at the dining table, her gaze fixed on the neat stacks of documents spread before her. Each piece of paper carried the weight of a truth she hadn't wanted to see but could no longer ignore. Bank transfers, joint accounts, property deeds, all evidence of the life Liam had built behind her back. Using her trust as his foundation, the silence of the house was broken only by the occasional chirp of birds outside the window. It was a stark contrast to the storm brewing inside her. She picked up her phone and opened the text thread from the unknown number. Now you know. What will you do about it? The question wasn't rhetorical anymore. Madison was no longer the unsuspecting victim. She was a woman armed with truth. And that truth demanded action. Her first call wasn't to Liam. It wasn't even to Jessica. Instead, she reached out to someone she hadn't spoken to in years, Michael, her older brother. Michael was a no-nonsense kind of man, a lawyer with a reputation for dismantling cases like puzzles. If anyone could help her navigate the mess Liam had created, it was him. Madison? Michael's voice was groggy when he answered. It's been a while. Everything okay? Madison hesitated, the words catching in her throat. I need your help, she finally said. It's about Liam and Jessica. Michael was silent for a moment. Then came the soft exhale that told her he understood more than she'd said. I'll be there in an hour. True to his word, Michael arrived precisely 60 minutes later. His sharp gray suit a stark contrast to Madison's disheveled appearance. She poured him a coffee and gestured toward the dining table. This is everything I've found, she said, her voice steady despite the turmoil roiling beneath. Liam's been lying to me. About Chicago. About our marriage. About everything. Michael scanned the documents, his brow furrowing as he pieced together the story. This isn't just a simple affair, he muttered. This is calculated. The joint accounts, the property in Jessica's name, it's all strategic. He's been planning this for a long time. Madison clenched her fists. I need to stop him. Michael, I can't let him get away with this. Michael looked up at her, his eyes sharp. Stopping him is one thing. Exposing him is another. You need to decide what your goal is. Madison, do you want revenge? Or do you want justice? The question hung in the air, heavy and unanswerable. Madison didn't know yet. All she knew was that Liam and Jessica had shattered her trust, and she couldn't let them walk away unscathed. As the siblings worked through the evidence, Michael's phone buzzed on the table. He glanced at the screen and frowned. It's Megan, he said, referring to his wife. She just got a call from Jessica. Apparently, Liam's been talking about setting up a trust fund for his future family. Madison's stomach turned. Future family? He means the family he plans to have with Jessica. Michael nodded grimly. That's what it sounds like. Madison, this isn't just about betrayal anymore. This is about control. Over you, over Jessica, and over your lives. Madison swallowed hard. What do we do? Michael leaned back in his chair, considering. First, we gather everything. Not just what you found, everything. Emails, phone records, financial statements. We need to build a case, not just against Liam, but against the entire web he spun. And then, Michael's gaze hardened. And then we confront them, but not until we're ready. Not until we have the upper hand. For the first time in days, Madison felt a flicker of hope. She wasn't alone in this anymore. With Michael by her side, she had a chance to fight back. That evening, as Madison sorted through another stack of papers, her phone buzzed with a new text from the anonymous number. This time, it wasn't a question. It was a warning. Jessica doesn't know everything. Be careful whom you trust. Madison stared at the screen, her pulse quickening. The message didn't make sense. Jessica was part of the betrayal. Wasn't she? She was complicit in Liam's lies. Wasn't she? Doubt crept in like a shadow. What if Jessica wasn't as deeply involved as she'd assumed? What if Liam had been lying to both of them? The thought made her chest tighten. If it were true, Jessica wasn't just a traitor. She was another victim. Madison set the phone down and looked at Michael. "We need to talk to Jessica," she said. Michael raised an eyebrow. "Are you sure? That could blow our cover." "I'm sure," Madison replied. "If Liam's been lying to her too, she deserves to know. And if she's part of this, I need to see it for myself." Michael nodded, his expression unreadable. "Okay, but we do this carefully. No emotions, no outbursts, just facts." Madison agreed. But as they planned the meeting, she couldn't shake the feeling that she was stepping into an even deeper labyrinth of lies. For better or worse, the confrontation with Jessica would be the next step in unraveling Liam's betrayal, and in finding the truth that lay at the heart of it all. The cafe buzzed with quiet conversations, the hiss of the espresso machine, and the clink of cups against saucers. Madison sat at a small corner table, her back straight and her hands clasped tightly around her mug. She hadn't touched her coffee. Across from her, Jessica fidgeted, her latte untouched, the wedding band on her finger glinting in the sunlight streaming through the window. The silence between them was thick, charged with the weight of shared history and the betrayal that had fractured it. Madison took a deep breath, steadying herself for what was to come. "You wanted to meet," Jessica said, her voice trembling slightly. "What's this about?" Madison met her gaze, her own expression unreadable. "It's about Liam, about what he's done to me, to you, to both of us." Jessica stiffened, her hands freezing mid-fidget. "I don't know what you mean." Madison reached into her bag and pulled out a slim folder, sliding it across the table. "Read this, and don't bother denying it. I have more if you need convincing." Jessica hesitated, then opened the folder. Her eyes scanned the documents inside: bank statements, emails, property deeds. As she read, her face shifted from confusion to shock to horror. "He told me," Jessica's voice broke, and she shook her head as if trying to clear it. "He told me you didn't love him anymore, that you were distant, too focused on your career. He said he was lonely. That's what he told me about you." Madison interrupted, her tone cold. "That you were his confidant, his shoulder to cry on, the only person who truly understood him." Jessica's eyes filled with tears. "I believed him. I thought he loved me." Madison's jaw tightened. "That's the thing about Liam. He's good at making you believe. But the truth is, he doesn't love anyone but himself." Jessica looked down at the folder, her hands trembling. "I didn't know about the trust fund, or the joint accounts, or the property in my name. I thought," she trailed off, her voice barely above a whisper, "I thought he was divorcing you because he wanted to start fresh with me." Madison leaned forward, her voice hard. "Liam doesn't start fresh. He doesn't end things, either. He just moves pieces around the board until he has the control he wants. And we're just pawns to him." Jessica's tears spilled over, and she quickly wiped them away. "What do we do?" Madison's lips pressed into a thin line. "We make him pay." The plan took shape over the next several days. A carefully crafted strategy designed to dismantle Liam's lies without collateral damage. Michael was the architect, his legal expertise a steady guide through the minefield of betrayal. Madison and Jessica worked together, gathering evidence, piecing together timelines, and preparing for the confrontation that would expose Liam's double life. For Madison, the process was both cathartic and painful. Sifting through years of memories, she found herself mourning not just the life she thought she had, but the version of Liam she had once loved. The man who made her laugh, who held her hand on long walks, who whispered promises under the stars. Had any of it been real? Jessica struggled with the same questions. She wrestled with guilt, anger, and shame, haunted by the realization that she had betrayed her oldest friend for a man who had been lying to her all along. But through their shared pain, the two women found a fragile bond, a renewed connection forged in the fire of Liam's deception. As the day of reckoning approached, Madison couldn't help but feel a sense of dread. Confronting Liam wasn't just about justice. It was about reclaiming her sense of self, her agency, her power. She wasn't sure she was ready, but she knew she couldn't back down. The setting for the confrontation was deliberate, the Mitchell family estate, where Liam and Madison had spent so many happy summers. The estate was hosting a charity gala that night, an event filled with powerful people who would serve as unwilling witnesses to Liam's downfall. Madison arrived early, dressed in a sleek black gown that mirrored her resolve. Jessica arrived shortly after, her own dress a shade of deep red that spoke of defiance. Michael met them at the entrance, his expression serious. "Everything's ready," he said, holding up a briefcase. "Are you?" Madison nodded, though her heart raced. "Let's do this." The gala was in full swing when Madison stepped into the grand ballroom, her heels clicking against the polished marble floor. Conversations hummed around her, laughter punctuating the air, but she focused only on Liam, who stood near the bar, laughing with a group of guests. Jessica entered moments later, drawing his attention. His smile faltered when he saw her, and it vanished entirely when Madison appeared at her side. His eyes darted between them, confusion giving way to unease. "Madison," he said, his voice carefully neutral. "What are you doing here?" "I think you know," Madison replied, her tone icy. She nodded toward Michael, who stepped forward and opened a briefcase. Inside were copies of every piece of evidence they had gathered: the financial records, the emails, the deeds. Liam's eyes widened as he took it all in. "This is absurd," he said, his voice rising. "You can't just—" "We can," Michael cut in. "And we will, unless you're willing to cooperate." Liam's gaze hardened. "Cooperate? With what?" "With justice," Madison said. "You've been playing games with our lives. Liam, now it's your turn to lose." The room fell silent as Liam's lies unraveled under the weight of the evidence. The guests watched in stunned silence as Madison and Jessica exposed the truth, their voices steady and unyielding. By the end of the night, Liam's reputation was in tatters, his carefully constructed facade shattered. He left the estate in disgrace, his future uncertain. Madison watched him go, her chest tight with a mixture of relief and sorrow. She had won, but the victory was bittersweet. Liam had taken so much from her: her trust, her peace, her sense of security, but he hadn't taken her spirit. As the ballroom emptied, Madison turned to Jessica, who stood by her side. "We did it," she said quietly. Jessica nodded, her eyes shining with unshed tears. "We did." For the first time in weeks, Madison felt a sense of peace. She wasn't whole yet, but she was on the path to healing. And that, she realized, was the greatest victory of all. Thank you for joining us on this emotional journey through betrayal, courage, and the pursuit of justice. We hope Madison's story reminds you of the strength it takes to confront the truth and the power of resilience in rebuilding trust and healing. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to Empathy Stories for more heartfelt narratives. Your support helps us share stories that inspire and connect. Until next time, take care and cherish the moments that matter most.